Hey guys, here we are with grading a fighter A level. There aren't a lot of A level fighters, and I already kind of talked about one of them in the B level setup, just because his defense is so good. It was Floyd Mayweather. There aren't a lot of fighters that exhibit the amount of craft that Mayweather has defensively. While some of it is skirting the edge of illegal, if I was training a fighter, I would 100% tell them to use an illegal tactic rather than getting knocked out. Now, as a boxing fan, I understand the need and the necessity for some of it, and I also understand that it's not always as sportsmanlike as you'd like, as long as it's not damaging like to the other fighter, like there are laces in somebody's face or eyes. Like, that's too excessive for me. But sometimes it's really important when you get out of position so you don't get knocked out. But unfortunately, I won't have any clips of Mayweather in this video. I tried 2 other videos where I did have some clips of Mayweather. So before everyone calls me a frickin' Floyd hater again, because of some stupid shit like him getting punched in my intro series, I'm a Floyd hater. I can't put the videos on YouTube because the copyright claims, okay? There are too many other Floyd haters aside from me that don't want me to criticize or analyze or promote his work. So, in any case, I'm always on the fence about whether I regard Mayweather as an A-level fighter anyway, just because most of his punch setup is due to setting traps, right? And I think like setting traps is like C+ level, like B- level setting up of your offense, right? It takes a little bit more time than just probing or like good feinting and getting a read on your opponent. Might take like a round or 2 to set up those kinds of punches. But if Mayweather had more power, right, where he could take more advantage of those traps and more consistently knock his opponents out, I think that would be enough to edge him into the A category. But because he doesn't generally knock people out, it's kind of difficult. But anyway, enough with those little like tidbits about Mayweather in specific. He's a great fighter for sure. Again, he was the reason why I decided to start boxing in the first place. But anyway, we're going to get into one of the fighters that I do consider to be an A-level fighter, and that is Vasily Lomachenko. And this guy is just phenomenal. I wouldn't be surprised if he went down as one of the greatest fighters of all time, or as just the best. Like, in my mind, without, being too much of a fanboy, I kind of think that he's on his way to being that. But in the meantime, I'm just going to enjoy watching him fight. So let's get on and kind of take a look at some of the things that he does so well. Probing, right? First thing you notice, a jab, right? But look at how he just flicks it out there. I want to talk about how most fighters like have like a hard commit to their jab, right? They step in real hard, they throw the punch real hard, and whether it lands or not, they're committed, right? Whereas you have Vasily Lomachenko, he can throw that jab, and if he hits you with it, it's gonna hurt, right? You see some effects of that jab later on in the fight to Sosa's eye, but he doesn't have to commit to it. He doesn't lean into the shot. He doesn't put himself off balance. He's one of the few fighters that is able to throw a punch without actually putting themselves out of position or off balance, so they don't actually even all the time need to use head control to make sure that they're safe from their opponent's offense. But let's go ahead and take a look. I want to kind of highlight this little trick that he uses right here. It kind of backfires him in this instance, but he jabs, shows the guy the right hand, and the guy leans in for a right hand. Loma controls his head with this jab, and as the guy jumps in for lead foot dominance, putting Lomachenko out of position, Lomachenko puts his arm on his shoulder to keep him at bay while he circles out. He still gets hit with this right hand, even though he has his glove up, but even great fighters still get hit. But it's just how quickly he transitions to trying to control his opponent who's taking lead foot dominance. And even though he gets hit with the punch, the likelihood that he'd get hit with another one, is debatable as well. But we'll see along another time in the round during the course of this film study when he's being put out of position that trick actually does work for him, and it starts to work for him. There's also another time where I couldn't find it. I couldn't find what round it was in, but during this exact transition, when his opponent starts taking lead foot dominance like this, and as soon as his opponent's foot gets on the ground, he actually pushes his head off instead of just his shoulder, and it works much more effectively, but I couldn't actually find it. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and watch a little bit of this round two. This is some really cool stuff. Again, he comes in, right, flicks the jab out while he's moving, gets a good look at his opponent, ducks down, dips down, shows him, a very active guard. Sosa kind of catches him, with this left hook right here as he's coming in. Not a lot of power on it though, because Lomachenko has lead foot dominance. But check this out. He comes in like this, makes Sosa pivot, blocks the uppercut, and now Sosa doesn't really have anywhere to go. So he kind of uses this movement, and without throwing punches, to get Sosa to put himself out of position and move back along the ropes. And now once he's against the ropes, he starts letting go of his offense. Let's kind of break down a little bit of what he does here. Again, shows him the jab, right? Not a real punch, doesn't commit to it, he doesn't lean into it, and Lomachenko doesn't lean into his shots anyway, but again, shows him his jab, and then when Sosa thinks they're about to go touch gloves, he shoots a jab over the top, takes lead foot dominance, gets his hand, shows him the right hand again to get him to bring his hands up like it's going to be a high punch, and then goes for a left to the body, which lands. Really smart stuff. Then, boom. We're going to break that down too, again. So then he goes and he throws a right hand. It kind of looks like it grazes him on the back of the head. And then, while his body is turned and Sosa's head is on his right side, Lomachenko doesn't throw a punch with his right hand. He whips it around Sosa's head to control it and pull his head back to that side and throws that uppercut, controlling him after he threw that punch. So boom, controls him, brings his head up, controls him some more, and then gets out. Brilliant boxing, great use of angles, great use of controlling his opponent to set up his shots, even in the middle of the course of his shots, but also a great use of positioning to stop himself from being in position to take punches, but also to set up his own offense. Very, very high-level stuff from Mr. Lomachenko here. And again, right here, really good stuff. Leans in, right? Boop. And then gets out of the way and establishes lead foot dominance. But, Sosa doesn't stay there. They kind of touch heads or whatever. But Lomachenko doing some really good stuff. Again, shows him the jab. Doesn't commit to the jab, right? It's a punch. That one was a punch. Flick jab, right? Again, another one as he takes lead foot dominance, catches him with the shot, and then controls him with this jab on the way out. Boom. Shows him the jab again. And look at how he ends it, right? So look at the angle that he's coming in at. Boom. And then he just ever so slightly shoots to his right and moves his footwork, causing Sosa to have to move back on the line with him as he changes where the line is to avoid taking any more damage and stopping him from actually being able to land his own offense. And we'll see the importance of that later. Like, you'll say, it doesn't matter if he doesn't have lead foot dominance. It doesn't matter. He's still in range to punch. And I'll show you a clip where Sosa kind of gets a little bit frustrated with that and does throw a punch anyway, and it doesn't really do anything. But let's go ahead and get into the second round. Just jump right into that, actually. Whoops. Yeah, here we go. So right here, here's another situation where Sosa goes to take lead foot dominance, and he controls his head and is able to block that punch. Brilliant defensive boxing, controlling him when he finds himself out of position in the midst of his opponent setting up offense on him. And then again, getting under the punch. Sosa showing some good head control himself, controlling him after he throws some punches. And I watched a video of Precise Presenter analyzing this fight, and after doing the video and looking for areas and stuff, I'm actually pretty impressed with Sosa. And I've never actually seen the fight between Walters and Sosa, but from what he does in the course of this video with his own angling and changing and his own active guard and all those things, it makes me kind of wonder if Sosa did beat him. So I'll kind of go back and do a video, and then the next fight that I do, like next time I talk about either Lomachenko or Sosa, or those names come up, or Nicholas Walters, I'll kind of let you guys know what I think. But it's really interesting because Sosa looks like a pretty high-level fighter from what I saw in this film study. You know, maybe C+. You know, I don't think quite B-. I didn't pay too much attention to his shit, but whatever. Anyway, let's get back to the Lomachenko stuff. Again, here he goes, shows him the jab, dips down to his right, gives him a probing right hand, then controls his head when he goes to swing that punch. He misses. Sosa misses his counter, and while he's out of position, Lomachenko crowds him again, shows him the two left hands, lands kind of a body shot. You know, it's kind of whipping and not landing with the punching part of the glove, and then controls him with his right hand. But look at how he catches him with the shot. Now, we're going to take a look at that in real time. Sosa is able to land that punch, and notice how it literally doesn't do anything. You know, well, Lomachenko does get his hand on it a little bit, but because he's not in position, because he's out of position, and Lomachenko has lead foot dominance, it literally has no power on it. And you can see right here why it's so important to have good positioning in the southpaw orthodox style fighting. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on a little bit. Lomachenko showing a fantastic ability to set up his shots. Then right here, boom, boom, boom. Controls his head when he's out of position. You know, that might get a little excessive, this part right here, where he's got his glove on his face. That's a little excessive, but I think it's also... Let's take a look. Is it because he's grabbing his arm? At what point does he wind up getting his arm? So right now, no. It's just a little excessive from Lomachenko. Let's hope not to see too much more of that. Really interesting. Shows him a jab, and then he's against the ropes, right? So what does he do? He dips down, gets him to think that a left hand is coming, and then he puts his glove, his arm, on top of his arm, holds it there so he can spin out and get out of position, or out of danger. Really high level stuff from Mr. Lomachenko again. We probably don't even need to do the third round like I was planning, but let's go ahead and take a look at a little bit of it. Whoops. And see what we got going on. Oh, yeah, that's what I wanted to show. So right here, jabs him and takes lead foot dominance as Sosa dips down and then controls his head, boom, and spins him out. High level defense again. Look at how active his guard is too. Right dip to the right, dip down, shows a couple jabs, spins him around again, controlling his head. Oop, high guard, feints, dips, controls his head again, showing him the jab, ducking down, right, boom. When he times that so well too, boom, boom, catches him with a little uppercut right there. You know, grazing shot, but still hiding his offense and his active guard. And one thing I wanted to talk about too is Bernard Hopkins says something really brilliant during the course of this fight, and it's not often that, you know, a fighter as experienced as Bernard Hopkins is able to say something that can kind of connect with his audience so much, because you only have, you know, maybe 5 seconds to give out your little comment before Jim Lampley says something like, oh, blah, 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 lots of fighters do that. Or whatever he says, or that's something specific to this guy, or whatever he says. Like, Jim Lampley's an idiot, but he says that while Lomachenko is not super active with his offense, which he kind of is and kind of isn't. Because he's so active with his guard, he's getting good looks at Sosa, but not letting Sosa find his rhythm, right? He's not allowing Sosa to pick apart his rhythm, right? Like when people have a stale defense or a stale guard, you can stand in front of them and kind of learn when you can throw punches, when they're in between their steps, when they're like, doing whatever. You can time their guard really well, but because Lomachenko's is so active, it's really difficult to get a good read on him. And Bernard Hopkins says it very eloquently during the course of this fight, if you want to rewatch it and listen. But again, really good right here. Throws a jab, pivots in, controls him, and stops himself from taking any return fire off of the control and when he finds himself out of position. And again, right here, Sosa throws a jab, and he goes to close the distance, tie him up a little bit, and immediately, one thing that you can't really see right here from this angle until you get here, Lomachenko gets his glove he gets his arm in between him and Sosa to kind of stop him from being able to unload any offense. Look at how he's controlling his arm as he spins him around, keeps his glove on him to stop him from being able to throw right hands. Really smart stuff from Lomachenko. Again, right there, showing him the jab, gets him to move out of position, throws an uppercut. It doesn't land, but again, setting up his offense really well. Dip down, change angle on him, right? Change his angle. He beats him to the line. Now he's out of position, but Lomachenko moves off the line at the same time, and Sosa actually catches him with a punch too. Not a big deal. Even great fighters get hit, as you saw in the Mayweather breakdown of B-level fighters. Mayweather gets hit a few times. But check this out. Look at how beautiful this is. Shows him the jab, leans in a little bit, shows him the right hand. But these are not real punches, right? Tap, 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 tap. And then he gets him to move out of position, and this is brilliant. Brings his hand up, swats away his guard, and catches him with a left hand. Just brilliant setup of that shot. And that was all predicated off of showing him all these punches and getting him to move out of position. As you see right here, Sosa's not in position to punch, and because he's no longer in position to punch or exactly defend himself, Lomachenko can throw that shot for free. High-level boxing. Again, oh man, we're already 17 minutes into this, and I have another fighter that I want to talk about a little bit. And it's an interesting one too, because I go back and forth on it because in his most recent fights, this fighter hasn't shown great, B-level defensive responsibility. Ooh, again, really smart stuff from Lomachenko. Shows him all these punches, turns him, throws a body shot, and then controls him on his way out. Boom, boom. Really great stuff from Lomachenko. Just using, and one of the things that I want to talk about too, one of the avenues that Mayweather uses when he's fighting is he'll get his opponent to come at him and get on the ropes, and then when he slides off of the ropes, he changes angle and gets off the line, and then while his opponent is trying to get back on the line to continue to fight with him, he lands a lot of punches. He does that to Andre Berto throughout the entire course of the fight. And that's one thing that Lomachenko does extremely well. Having the advantage of being southpaw, so it's a little more conventional of a tactic, and it's a little more simple to put your opponent out of position when you're southpaw versus orthodox, because of the way your bodies line up. He kind of has the advantage, but it's one of the avenues that Mayweather pursues when setting up his offense too. Although Mayweather doesn't always use a lot of probing or a lot of feinting and stuff. He usually sets traps, like I was saying, and tries to pull you into the ropes, commit to a shot, and get away from it so that you throw yourself out of position and he can counter you. But again, Lomachenko using a very similar tactic, with all the lead foot dominance. And again, right here also, when he's in close, controlling the right hand, pinning it to his body so he can't throw a shot, pinning it again. video freeze a little bit, pinning his arms to his body, and throughout the course of that entire exchange, Sosa didn't really land any shots. You know, he might have landed one in there, but he only threw one as well. But anyway, again, showing him the lead hand, gets him to commit to be out of position, controls his head, spins him around, controls his head a little bit. You know, maybe a little excessive right there. I know the video quality gets a little crazy too, but showing a great mastery of head control and putting his opponent to the side of his body that he wants him on. Right here again, gets under the shot, controls him with his elbow and pivots off of him and gets under the next shot. Really great eyes, really great angles from Lomachenko. Again, gets under a shot, right? And then gets his elbow onto him, controlling him so he can pivot and move off of him and use his weight as balance. And they kind of tie up a little ugly right there. I was saying something about Mayweather. I don't remember exactly what it was. But anyway, moving on to Lomachenko, just watching him work a little bit. I think he has one more little offensive reign in here, and then we'll move on to the next fighter. Again, look at how active his guard is, how he doesn't commit to these punches, right? Throws it out, throws the right hand, probing again, trying to get his opponent to react. And as soon as he does get his opponent to react, slips it, takes lead foot dominance. And if his opponent doesn't react appropriately, he's going to take some offense. Again, really smart. Feints him, shows him the left hand. He ducks down, catches him with the straight left. Boom. I apologize also if I'm getting left-handed, right-handed mixed up. But anyway, gets him on the ropes. You know, he's not really in position to defend himself. And he does a good job of avoiding a lot of these shots, Sosa does. And they wind up tying up. And I think that's the end of the round. But the next fighter that I wanted to talk about is actually Gennady Golovkin. Now, most people do not associate this fighter as being an A-level fighter. A lot of people think that he's very basic, that he's, you know, he has no defense, and he's a puncher, and this and that. And it's interesting because in his older fights, he shows much more defensive responsibility. And I think that, you know, and also, like, much more explosiveness, too. Not that he was a better fighter before, and now he's, like, bought into his own hype, but I don't like doing this. I don't like talking about, like, conjecture or being like, oh, you know, my theory on why he does. You know, I'm not trying to sound pretentious in any way. But I think that even though Golovkin doesn't show the skills that I'm going to say that he has defensively in his most recent fights, I definitely think they are skills that he has, and I'll show them to you during the course of this round with Daniel Geale. But I wanted to talk about, you know, I think that he kind of gets himself away from that stuff to make the fights more exciting. You know, allows people to throw punches at him, allows them to hit him. Sometimes he does just use, like, the C-level defense where he's just blocking punches and allowing his opponent to punch at him. But I think a lot of times he does that to create a show, you know, to make the fight more exciting. And now, if you're not like a proponent of that idea, I completely understand. You know, it's one of those, like, fishy conspiracy things about Golovkin that's really interesting. So I completely understand if you guys don't agree. You don't have to tell me in the comments about it. I understand if you don't. But I want to kind of highlight some of the offensive and defensive skills that Golovkin does have earlier in his career when he was fighting Daniel Geale. So here he goes. Right? What does Daniel Geale do? Shoots a jab at him. He ducks it, right? And now he's too close to really see all the punches coming, right? So he needs to control Daniel Geale and get out. So what does he do? He puts his elbow on him, controls his head, and pivots out. And notice how he gets to the line first. So he could set up offense or start throwing on Daniel Geale before Daniel Geale's even in position, showing that after he winds up out of position, he knows how to control his opponent to get back into it. Very simple stuff, right? Not a super active guard at the moment, which is something that I'm usually a proponent of. But also, Golovkin doesn't have an amateur guard anyway, right? Like, hands held high, you know, his posture is not, like, you know, perfectly straight up. You know, he's kind of rounding his shoulders for that professional defense. Golovkin has a professional stance, I'll say. And the way that he punches, he doesn't explode out of his guard. He throws punches off of his guard with a rhythm that he walks with. It's really interesting. Like right here, like there's not really any telegraph off of this punch. It's just off of his own movement. It's very natural. Whereas you'll see a lot of fighters come out with their amateur style and they explode, and you can kind of time them as right before they stop or right before they punch, they kind of freeze completely. You know, they kind of stop and then explode out and throw punch. Whereas Golovkin's is really seamless with his movement. And on top of that, he throws the jab. Gil gets under it, and what does he do? He controls his head and turns him out and slightly changes angle again. So he comes in on this angle and then brings his foot back just a little bit, change the angle so Gil can't fight him on that axis. Tries to catch Gil while he's coming in with the punch, countering, right? He doesn't land the counter, but showing that he can counterpunch with him. So it makes you wonder all those times where he's just allowing his opponent to throw punches and he's just covering up and he's not countering him. Why he's not? Because we see that he knows how to counterpunch. Here he throws a jab, right? And immediately recoils back expecting a counter, right? So it's like kind of a probing jab. Touches him with it. Again, does the same thing. And Gil does actually punch with him in this instance. Let's go back. I want to see if it lands. Yeah, it does kind of get up a piece of Golovkin, and then Golovkin gets his arm up and his right glove up to kind of try to catch or control him if he throws another punch. Very defensively responsible. And that's not something that you see a lot of times. Like when he fought Danny Jacobs, you know, he kind of let that fight be really close, or it was close. You know, I don't know which side of the fence you're on. Oop. Here he comes in with a left hook that's kind of predicated off of the jabs that he's been throwing. He doesn't fall for it. Gil doesn't fall for it, right? But also, if you look at it, Golovkin's prepared. He's waiting for a counter when he throws it, right? He doesn't super commit to it. He's not like following through with the punch. It's like a probing shot to kind of get Gil to counter him. And then he goes right into throwing his own jab. And I want you to take a look at when he throws his jab. Look at how he brings his glove up, right? His shoulders covering his chin. His right glove is open, pointed at his opponent, so he can catch a jab if one comes back. And then he rocks back, being defensively responsible. Then moving in, right here, boom, controls his head after that failed jab, right? And then controls his head and moves back. You know, very defensively responsible. You know, showing a lot of skills that he didn't exactly show in like the Danny Jacobs fight. Like, he does it sometimes in the Danny Jacobs fight. He has a much more active guard in that respect, where he's setting up his offense much better. But he's kind of slow playing Daniel Gil here. And Daniel Gil was a much less dangerous opponent than Danny Jacobs. Here, catches him with a jab, and what does he do? Controls his head, shows him another jab, and changes angles again. Jab, look at his foot slide back, and change angles, forcing Daniel Gil back onto a different line so that he can try and land his offense. Again, remember, when you're not on that line, you don't have any power per Lomachenko Sosa. Although the angles are a little different in the orthodox, it's very similar. A little bit of feinting from Mr. Golovkin, and I think he eats a jab here. He might get a piece of it, I don't know, but showing that he's ready for another follow-up punch. Again, throws a jab, doesn't get a piece of him, gets his glove up to catch another punch, defensively responsible. Gil goes to control him, right? And Golovkin just moves back, not really taking any offense there. Again, throws a jab, changes angle, doesn't take any offense in return. And here he kind of surprises Golovkin coming in. And Golovkin eats a shot. But notice right after he eats a shot, he ducks down and rolls what would be another shot. Very defensively responsible, and even great fighters get hit. coming in, leaning on him. You know, eats another shot there again. Then Golovkin throws a, you know, wide hook, you know, not really landing the shot. But we'll see later how much different Golovkin's offense winds up getting. Again, while he's not super active in his guard, he also doesn't telegraph any of his shots. Again, right here, throws a jab, controls Gil again. After his jab, when Gil starts moving forward, controls him with the jab and gets out of there. Another tactic he didn't really show too much in his most recent fights. And this is actually a really long round. Boom, misses that shot. Whoops. But it was a probing shot, kind of gets countered, and doesn't take any additional offense. Throws a jab, controls him. You know, and so far we haven't really seen Golovkin really setting his punches up super well, right? And we'll get to that. Again, Gil comes in, kind of lands that shot. I think he kind of rolls it. Golovkin gets his arm on him, shoves him, you know, controls him, changes the angle so he doesn't take any extra shots. Just kind of like, you know, going really slow. And it's really interesting because we know Golovkin's capable of more of this, right? Is it that Gil is really cagey, right? And he's actually a really good fighter? Or is it Golovkin just moving really slow? I don't know. So he catches him with the jab. Here, boom, jab. Catches him with one. Controls him with his right hand, or with his left hand, then controls him with his right hand, gets him in the corner. Probe, probe. And does he land that right hand? Probe. Almost. It kind of looks like it does because he whips back from it. But I'm not sure. Maybe he does tag him with it. Who knows? But right there, really high-level offense. Shows him the jab. Rolls what would be the counterpunch that he's expecting from him. And when he rolls it, throws a left hook right after. Also, while he's doing that, so it's head slot one, roll, throws a hook, and also moves his head to the right, avoiding what could be another potential shot, showing an extreme high, like a high level of defensive responsibility during the course of this. And then comes in, feints, throws a right hand while he's out of position, wings his, and now while he doesn't touch him with this right hand, right, he brings it up to block counter shots, right? He doesn't need to wing it up like that, right? He can just turn his body, and then he turns that, and that's a kind of his way of like controlling his opponent, you know, maybe showing him the right hand, but it would be to block that shot. But I just get the sense in Golovkin's case that he's holding back and he's trying not to kind of go all out. You know, after he throws that body shot, controls him with the right hand, now he controls him with the left hand, but very slightly. It's really interesting, you know. Controls him with the left hand, jabbing with them. Whoops, I'm gonna have to plug this sucker in. Alright, don't worry, I saw Golovkin get punched in the head right there. No big deal. Now, this is a really interesting point in the round. Gil kind of falls down, and if you notice, there's 17 seconds left in the round. 14, you know, but it doesn't end like that. But I want to go back right here. How Golovkin comes in, and now he kind of changes his tactics, right? Shows him the 1-2, 1-1, controlling him off of these punches, boom, 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 right? Controlling him, and now he's using much more control. He's being a little more aggressive, but he's using much better tactics. You know, why is he choosing to use them now, right? Showing again, right? Jab, controls him, throws the right hand, controls him while he's on the ropes, throws a left hook, controls him again with the left hook, right? Boom, controls him with the right hand to pull his guard down, and after he throws all that combination, boom, when he changes angle, Golovkin controls his head right there, right? Now, why doesn't he do that all the time? That's the question, right? It's like, it does make me wonder, you know, maybe he is just fighting lower to the level of his opposition, right? Kind of like in sparring, a lot of times there are a lot of reports where Golovkin's not going all out in sparring and he doesn't find sparring partners that he can kind of go all out on. And again, like I said, I hate the conjecture, right? I hate the fact that it's so ambiguous, right? In this respect, if whether or not Golovkin is an A-level fighter because he shows the defensive responsibility like he is in these situations, or because he doesn't always do it, right? And again, throws the right hand, controls him with the elbow so he doesn't take return fire, and then Gil doing the right thing, spinning him out and pushing him off balance, and that's the reason why he's not controlled right there. Gil doing some really good things, but you can see the hallmarks of a high-level defensive fighter in Golovkin, in spite of the fact that he doesn't always utilize these skills. And again, right, shows him the right hand. Gil kind of jabs at him, and he catches it with his right hand, touches his jab again with his own glove, right? Touch his glove, dip down, get under. When he rolls off, he changes angles, right? Dips down, pivots out, causing Gil to be offline and then have to reset and not be able to throw any punches. Really high-level stuff from Mr. Golovkin. They body up, and he kind of pushes him off. And the round should have been over probably like a minute ago now. It's a pretty long round. But Golovkin's showing like some really high-level skills. And we're going to do one more little round of Golovkin too. I guess we can finish this one. Nah, we're not going to finish it. Whatever. We're going to go into the 5th round with Golovkin versus Brook. And again, I kind of got the feeling during the course of this fight that Golovkin stopped going all out after he hurt Brook in the first round. But again, throws a jab, right? Boom. Brook starts coming in. He controls his head like this, holds him, and then Brook gets his arm around him. But Golovkin's showing high-level defense, high-level amounts of control of Brook. And he does a lot more in the course of this round. We're not going to go through the whole round, but, right, ducks down, shows him the left hook. He turns in to control Brook's right arm. I don't know if you kind of get a look at that, but boom. He turns in, controls Brook's right arm with his left arm with his own right arm, throws a little left hook inside, and then pushes off. Not a super active guard at the moment, but here he is. He gets Brook on the ropes, right hand to the body, controls his head, control him, boom. And look at all this offense that he's landing, and all while he's controlling Brook in between these shots. So boom, catches him with a right hand, left hook, controls his arm, pushes him back to the ropes, throws another left hand, controls him, throws a right hand, feints, catches him with a left hook, another left hook, right uppercut, control him. As you see that like extra little jab in there, right? Boom. The second one is actually just to control his head and make him stay there, or think it's another punch, right? Like probing. Really high-level stuff from Golovkin, and you don't really get the sense that there's a reason why he can't be doing this the whole time. And that's one of the puzzling things about Golovkin. And again, at the end of his offense, throws that hook and takes off to the side. And most people might think that that's like an accident, right? But that's a really high-level thing that he was doing to Danny Jacobs, too, to stop him from taking return fire. Again, throws a jab and then gets his forearm on his neck right there to control him. Kind of punches him in the back or whatever, you know. He shouldn't be doing that, but high-level control from Golovkin. But you can tell that he has these skills and he uses them when he wants to, but for some reason he doesn't always use them. But these are indicative of an A-level fighter. And that's one of the really intriguing things about Golovkin, is that he doesn't always show them, but you can see that he has them. So he kind of has this guise about him that he has no defense, this and that, whereas you can see that Brook is not only having a hard time landing clean and effective shots, but he's not really having any. But Golovkin's not really having any trouble landing clean and effective shots when he really wants to. And again, also something like very Mayweather-esque, right? Like if you're going to give Mayweather an A grade, even though he doesn't always show the most amount of setup for his offense, you can give Golovkin an A grade for defense, even though he doesn't always show these defensive qualities, you know. But you can see very clearly that he has them, but you can also see clearly that sometimes he tries not to use them. One thing I do want to show in the last clip before we get out of here, and we're talking about we were talking about a lot of angles and the way that they use defense, to, like pivoting off the line. That's a really high level defensive tactic. And there are more A-level fighters than this. You know, I didn't get a full spectrum of them. Alexander Gochik, you know, if I rewatch that, I'm pretty sure like I'd give him an A rating. I've got his videos for where he fought Yunieski Gonzalez and did some really great work in there. And I think it's pretty safe to say that he's an A-level fighter. But I want to show. I talked a little bit about Mayweather and the traps that he sets, and I kind of wanted to show one of the traps that he sets in one of his fights against Victor Ortiz, right? Very good at making you think one thing's going to happen, and then another thing happens, and that's what you call a trap, you know. His usual one is the pull counter, or jabbing to the body and then jumping in with the left hook. But here he gives Victor Ortiz something a little interesting. He goes, oh, okay, yeah, no problem. I know you just fouled me. Let's hug it out, right? Shows him the hug, controlling him, and then bam, lands a huge left hook and then a right hand. Just brilliant control over his opponent. Completely sets him up for this shot by making him think, oh, yeah, good sportsmanship. That's what's up. Bam, bam, knockout. Like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks.